Welcome to Milk Drunk by Bobby, a straight-up conversation about parenthood without the BS. We'll be featuring parenting experts, people you may recognize, and some others you might be meeting for the first time. Milk Drunk is brought to you by Bobby, the mom-founded and led organic formula brand evolving the conversation around how we choose to feed our babies. Our goal is to have open and honest conversations that make parents feel less alone. Think group chat energy, but I'm not going to text you screenshots of my Strava. 10-minute mile, baby. Today is a historic day for our podcast because we have Olympic medalist, 6-time USA outdoor track champion, author, analyst, spokesperson, entrepreneur, activist, and mother of 3, Alicia Montano here. And as if that isn't enough to blow you away, Alicia is also the co-founder, president, and CEO of And Mother, a nonprofit organization that breaks down systemic barriers so that mothers can fully participate and succeed in sports, which Bobby is partnering with, but more on that later. Also joining us today is human rights lawyer, founder, mother of 2, and the leader of Bobby for Change, Michelle Lampak. Let's get into it. All right, so we're going to start with you, Alicia, about becoming a mom, being a professional athlete, fighting for progress, and all these things that lead you to where you are today. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds awesome.
So we'll start with your 3 adorable kids. What are their names and ages? Where are we at right now?
Oh my gosh. Well, I want to know where I'm at right now. I'm like, that just sums it up right there. I have an 8, 5, and a 3-year-old. My 8-year-old's going to be 9 in August. Mm-hmm. She just submitted. A Leo.
I've got one. Yep.
She just submitted her opinion piece to me about why she should have a sleepover. Like a full proposal opinion piece. It's very good. I think she
amazing.
I'm just like, and so, yeah, that's the zone that I'm in. We've got all of the personalities are just blossoming. My 5-year-old is the sweetest, most cuddly, like human on the planet. But he's also or I don't know if it's a but, he is also your Sour Patch Kid. So he he's got that nice, like tender, sort of squeezy bit. And then, you turn a corner and, suddenly he's decided he was like painting the entire countertop with like mud. And you're just like, cool.
Yes.
We love you. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that description. My second might be the opposite, like an inverse Sour Patch Kid.
Ooh,
like she starts as
I need
sour.
to hear more about that. Oh, I love that. Okay. But like there's a soft, like sweet inside.
Once you get in, you're in.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I love that. And then my 3-year-old is like, he's the third baby. Definitely fits the whole like birth order description of the third, plus the baby, so all of that. And he's just wants to fit in the mix, but is also like ready to tell on anybody for like not following the rules. That he himself doesn't really have to follow the rules, but like anybody else. So yeah, that's my fam.
And Michelle, tell me about your kids' ages and a little bit about them too.
Yeah. I have a 6-year-old who just finished kindergarten. And then Albie is going to be 3. And he, like similarly to your 5-year-old, Alicia, he's so cuddly. He's so loving. He's so cute. He's got the curls. He's like this little cherub. If I leave him for 1 second, he has gotten paint everywhere. At his teacher conference, they said, all the things we love him. Also, he puts himself in unsafe situations regularly.
These are the seconds. They're wild.
Yeah.
They're wild.
When he was 2 years old, he escaped from a hotel. So yes, we know.
Yes, yeah. We know.
Okay. Our seconds are fitting birth order, everyone. So
completely. Every sort of meme I see, I'm like, wow, I'm not at all having a unique experience. This is great.
I love that so much.
So I want to throw it back, Alicia, to your feeding experiences, which I'm sure you're happy to be out of. Yes. Not that it's not a beautiful time. But how were your feeding experiences with each of them?
Oh my gosh. Okay. How much time do you have? It was interesting. I feel like my first should probably, I don't know if she should go last or not, but she was the most interesting because it's your first. And I felt like I also had a lot of like hindsight pressure on just how I was going to do parts of my motherhood. I put a lot of pressure to like breastfeed the entire time, especially, having run pregnant and like, there were so many amazing comments, but then there are also like the negative ones that are like, you're so selfish, and like proving like I'm not. I can also, do this, and that's not selfish. I'm doing what I do. I'm doing my job. So with my daughter, I did go with like the 1 year goal of breastfeeding her and also getting back into work, which my job is physical.
Yes, we're going to get to that.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, oh, should this be the whole, and so my schedule was out of control. It was like I would wake up, and of course it changed month to month, every 3 months, every week was a thing. And then once they get 3 months, it's like every 3 months. And I would nurse her first, then I would eat, and I'd wait an hour, and then I'd pump for 20 minutes, and then I'd head to practice. And then I'd come back from practice, and then I'd nurse her, and then I'd pump for 20 minutes, and then I'd like go take a nap. And then I'd come back, and then that schedule just was so relentless that this is 2014. It was so relentless that I was like, okay, what was I, 7 months in? And I was like, my nipples are falling off. And I was like, we need to do all the research. And we just went all in on looking for a formula that fit what I wanted for my child. And at the time, nothing really existed that fit what I wanted to do. Like we had like a bunch of formulas sort of lined up so we can kind of do like the mix, and all of it was an ordeal. So that's just a nutshell of my first one.
Yep.
I traveled for the first time to the Bahamas. It was 8 months postpartum and, had all that whole mix. My freezer was like full of just breast milk. And my husband tried like, the formulas, and it was the whole thing. So I shoved all of my breast milk in all of the, ice chests underneath everyone's like, nutrition drinks. They didn't know it at the time. It just didn't exist. This mom breastfeeding, at our world championships. We won, by the way. We won a gold medal.
Yes.
Yeah. Woo.
Amazing.
But it was just not talked about. It was just not talked about on how we were going to do the thing. So when I got back, I just looked at my partner and I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to be able to keep this up. The only thing that kind of kept us going is that we couldn't find a formula that fit our needs and fit the needs of my baby. So that was kind of how that journey went. But then with my second, I was like, I'm a great mom. I'm so ready for this. I know that we don't have to have these tight timelines and expectations on things. Let's see how it goes. So we already had like our pantry stacked with, formulas, but the story still kind of went the same, where like the ease of how it felt on, this is 2017, which is, also the start of Bobby. Wish that we would have found Bobby then, because I know my experience would have just been much better. By 6 months, he kind of settled into just an easier routine where he was fine with every 4 hours. And so then I kind of did that. So by our third one, we were in the pandemic, and I had my third baby that was just like, had a name for my breasts and was 2 years old. So that was my feeding journey. We did like the mix for the first two, but they didn't love it. So by the third one, I was like, well, my boobs are at your command.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so true. I mean, they're all so different. Like I had two completely different journeys.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your iconic moment.
Yeah.
So you ran your marquee 800-meter sprint in the 2014 U.S. Championships while 8 months pregnant. Baby bump out and about, which is a bold move today, but was like 100 times bolder 9 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What made you say, yeah, I'm going to run this thing?
Oh my gosh. It's just crazy that was 10 years ago. What really, it was like watching the landscape of just women at work and how many barriers I saw in that in and of itself. Then looking into my sport, into my industry, seeing sport not be a space really where we saw much of any mothers existing. And if we saw moms, they were like retiring from the sport.
Yep.
And even like coaches, it was very few and far in between. And thinking about like, how do people do this if they're thinking about family? Like, what does that look like? And I'm scouring these contracts that you sign when you're like 20 years old.
So wild.
And it has nothing, there's no maternity, there's nothing in there about that. But when you're like 20 and you're just going into your career, you're not like, what does this look like for me?
Right.
And there was nobody providing any resources of like, here's what you should also ask for. It was like things like, bonuses, or like fight for travel money, or you should fight for PT. Those were all the things that were in it. And so I'm scouring it and I'm like looking through it and I'm like, there's an injury clause in here. There's no pregnancy clause. Are they equating injury with pregnancy? And I got to just chatting. I got to chatting with, there was a few moms that existed like within the sport that were visible. Apparently there were others that had tried it and like they just had no support on the back end, and you end up finding out why. So one of them, I know, Kara Goucher, she was a part of the op-ed that I did in 2019.
Yep.
She shared her experience with me, but it wasn't super candid. It was like around the way, but I was like kind of reading in between the lines, just like, how did you do this? She came back. You can read her book now. It's like the experience was abusive, to be honest, So I got to thinking like, how could I make sure that what I do cleans up the landscape and makes a path forward for other people behind me? So I decided I was going to run at USA Nationals. I was the defending champion. And I wanted to show people like, this is what it looked like for women in my career track to continue doing what they do. And somewhere in that, like, I was thinking about like who you are when you are a preteen into your like teen years. You're like kind of like, you think you like kind of have all the answers. You like know a lot. And sometimes we need to tap back into her, because she's the one that's like reminds you like, I deserve this, and I can make change and I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. So like, she talks to me quite often, and sometimes I don't listen to her, and I feel like, oh, I'm not doing like young Alicia justice. And like later on, you're like, I knew she was saying the right thing. So
that's right. I love that.
So that's kind of what led me to do it. And it was crazy, and it was the start of something amazing.
My husband and I met when we were 18 and 19. And we always do like a teenage self-check, like instead of a well check, we're always like, what would our teenage selves think about like this moment in time? Like, are we doing it? Like, would they be into it? Or would they be like, what happened?
Wow.
That's so good. Yes. I love that.
Yeah. Would she be like, oh, you're doing great. It's good.
Yeah. Or like, ew, what are we doing?
Yeah. Serious. Yeah. No, there would definitely be, maybe not, girl. Okay, so going back to that moment, did people try to talk you out of it?
I moved with intention. And it was like so many little moments that led to it. So it was like a meeting, and then you're hearing like some side conversation about like, oh, when women have their babies, what's next? And you're just like, or you go back to conversations before you're even talking about it. I go back to the conversation that I had with a partner when I asked them, like, what would happen before I was pregnant, if I became pregnant, they'd be like, we just pause your contract and stop paying you. So I had all these like I had this full dinner table conversation with a bunch of Alicia's experiences.
Yes.
Of just like, what are we, like, what is it? And so I expected for there to be folks that would try to talk me out of decisions that I'm even becoming pregnant. Like I didn't consult with, my sponsors, which many people do, about like, the part was about getting it language kind of like in place. And when I did show up and people started to see my name, like I signed up because I could, there was no rule that I couldn't sign up. I'm a defending champion. I just went and took my spot. And I ordered my uniform, and I ordered it like 2 sizes up from what it normally is. And I got a call from my sponsor at the time that was like, hey, are you going to be at nationals? And I was like, yep, I'm going to be there. We got to start like avoiding like conversations. And when I got there, I did have my rep manager like at the time just kind of say, I hope you're not running because you think you have to. And I'm thinking, actually, like I do have to, there's so much that I do have to run, but I'm also like, I don't believe you. And also like, there's a whole nother reason why I'm running besides what you might think of just like, I'm going to like win this race. Like, I know I'm not winning. Like, do you see me right now? But it was just bigger than that for me. And my intention was I was so intentional, and
Yeah.
a bunch of men coaches that are saying, if you become pregnant, you're not going to be able to come back. And the reason is because they lose their pay.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Now, how am I supposed to train, feed myself, recover? There's not adequate physical support that doesn't even exist for women across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a bunch of women that come up with carrying and shouldering
Mm-hmm.
what's needed in order for us to be supported, to survive,
Mm-hmm.
actually, not just financially, but literally physically survive.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. It
Yeah.
was my teenage self
It was
doing
your
what she
teenage
does.
self. Yeah. I'm glad that she's present. Did you know that it would lead to activism, right? And starting a nonprofit and really pushing, this being very central to your, what I understand to be your mission.
Yeah. I had no idea. Honestly,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was not thinking nonprofit at all. I was
No.
thinking equity. I was thinking my livelihood. I was thinking let's burn this place down. We're going to
Yeah.
burn this entire system down. We're going to
Yes.
do it by way of just charging the fences.
Yeah.
And it was continuously difficult. Even after I proved everything, I
Mm-hmm.
won medals 8, 10, 11 months postpartum, all within the first year,
Wow.
2 national titles, an American record, a gold medal, a silver medal, in the first year of my child.
Yes.
And this proof point of we can do this, and the just nobody
So
saw it, and
powerful.
but social media still wasn't as big yet, so nobody
Right.
I
Totally.
wasn't even thinking about how do I share all of this. I'm just doing
Yeah.
it because I'm doing this thing.
Yes.
And when I got to the end of the second year of my daughter's life, as it goes in many contracts, it's
Mm-hmm.
4 years, and then there's a renewal year.
Mm-hmm.
I felt safe to say yeah, we just did that, what does your
Mm-hmm.
next 5 years look like? I said I want to make the next Olympic team, but I want to have another child before that. And that you can
Mm-hmm.
just hear a pin drop.
Mm-hmm.
It was we sat through a pregnancy already, not even with you, just
Right.
and you expect for us to sit here again and waste money on you just sitting on your butt on vacation, it's that same thing women across all industries face, what are you
Yes.
doing to prove your worth while you're just sitting here? What are you eating Haagen-Dazs and it's
Oh
you
my
hear the
gosh.
assumptions with
Yeah.
just that, you know, just saying I would like to grow my family and I know I can do
Mm-hmm.
it. And the point was with your support in this 5-year plan,
Mm-hmm.
we can make this happen. Aren't
Right.
you so excited? And one thing I do want to mention is that there was a woman this was after I had the conversation with, my partner that I shared hey, what would happen if I'd become pregnant? And they were so
Mm-hmm.
blunt about it. Then I went with
Mm-hmm.
another partner and I was it could happen. So what would happen here? And,
Mm-hmm.
they were well, we haven't really done that in the past. We talked to different athletes. Is that something you're thinking about? And I felt so much don't say anything. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
within the contract, I extended injury to fit 18 months, instead of it being to
Wow.
fit okay,
Yeah.
what would I need if I could potentially just get through postpartum and then actually recover without feeling in order for me to continue to have my job, I have to
Mm-hmm.
compete in the first year of your child's birth. Not to say that it's not possible. I mean, I did it, but
Yeah.
I also don't
Sure.
feel that should be the norm,
No, not at all.
So
As you mentioned, you wrote a super powerful op-ed in the New York Times about this very experience. And a matter of weeks after that piece came out, several athletic brands announced a new maternity policy, including the one that you'd been working with for all sponsored athletes, which must have felt amazing.
yes.
And then a year and a half later, the same partner came out with a maternity line and campaign showing their support of athletes with growing families. I mean, which, I know, you are a supporter of mothers and growing families. So I'm sure mostly you felt this is amazing.
Yeah.
But what was it like to see all of that come to be?
It's so interesting because I'm not the first mom.
Right.
Surprise.
Surprise. We've been doing this.
What I thought was interesting was what it took to just get some semblance of support. And again, like that summer after we did the op-ed and like the back and forth that just kind of was happening to kind of actually make these changes, was not settling for less than what we expected. So even language that was like may or may not gave it this like idea that it's dependent on who, and dependent on the conversation. And we're like, no, like for all.
Yep.
And we don't want for the 20-year-old to walk into a contract and even have to tell you that, they're thinking about family, or to even know, like they could just be like, this is something that I deserve.
Yeah.
Like as a woman in my career track, like I deserve maternity protections. And so seeing that make those changes, and then like other companies adopt those changes, and just that being that catalyst for change, honestly, I don't really even have, and it sounds so cliche, but I really don't even have the words to describe it, because I think it's something that I didn't know I could feel, but it's like it started a really amazing ignition of fires that didn't just live within myself. Like I could feel all of these folks coming out of the woodwork, one, sharing their stories, two, asking how they could help. And out of that was born like And Mother, because I'm like, we have all these folks offering their resources. We have all of these athletes that that are calling me asking like what they should do now.
Right.
And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is where we're going to put this. And we know that not only with that, like how much sports impacts change. Like we know when people see they watch the Olympics and they're like hearing these stories, that it really impacts so much of what society does, but also how people view the world.
I mean, I will say I like cry through the Olympics because of the stories that I'm so invested in. It is really powerful. But you also elegantly provided a segue to And Mother, which I really appreciate.
I'm just doing my job.
Doing my outline for me, right? Talk to me about And Mother, how it came to be, and how you're shifting the narrative around parenthood and sports.
Yeah, well, I secretly want to be your co-host, so like,
yes,
that's probably what's happening here.
Oh, we can do that.
So it was like having these conversations, all these folks calling you, realizing there's no hub for any resources. I was like really birthing this idea. And I just put it on paper. I had my teenage self was like, this is what you got to do. Like, if we're making changes for me, Alicia, like, this is what you have to do. You can't just do it in a siloed space, which is kind of what people would do, right? It's like, well, I guess I have to just like, make my plate and I can just eat. And like, how do we bring people into the fold where we can literally make a feast together? And so the nonprofit took just some bravery, really, a belief in knowing that we could create change, that folks would want to get behind it. And I started kind of like typing out what our vision is, the mission, our strategy, our goal being LA 2028. Like we could like have sports across the entire board be, supported if parents are a part of the team, and we could have like the Olympics have like a caregiving space, and
oh my gosh,
like it would just
sign us up,
right? And a year later, after like kind of putting that whole rubric out, and we did a roundtable discussion at USA Nationals that year in 2019 about like what does the sporting industry need in this space, and I kind of just took all those notes, and And Mother was born in May of 2020, and and we did not know there was going to be a whole situation with all the kids at home.
Yes.
And my third was born in February of 2020. I mean, it was a time, and it was a time. Yeah. And it's just wild to kind of think about it like that. I was really like bolstering this change for other folks, but I was like in the thick of just, we got to keep going,
Oh my gosh, all of that. I mean, I think when all of us go back to 2020, March 2020, oh my gosh. What would you say are the top 3 resources parents, and particularly mothers, need to succeed as professional athletes and moms?
Oh my gosh. Childcare. Like
Mm-hmm.
universal childcare just needs to exist.
Mm-hmm.
I would say hands down childcare, adequate resources for options towards feeding,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that, the schedule is rife with changes when you have children, but also
Mm-hmm.
in your career track as well as an athlete. Like
Yep.
you go on how you're doing with recovery. And the other one I would say is physical and mental support.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that needs to exist across the board. When
Mm-hmm.
we talk about maternal health care, we need to
Mm-hmm.
not be walking into 6 weeks postpartum and then just now, somebody just kind of taking a quick look around and then saying, you're good to go. Good to go do what? Like, so what now?
No.
What
And
should
when
I do?
you never see me again now?
Now that's it? Like, absolute. So I just think it's the same across the board. It's really
Mm-hmm.
like we need childcare, we need adequate resources towards feeding, and
Mm-hmm.
we need physical and mental support.
Mm-hmm. What kind of lactation and feeding support does Ann Mother offer?
So we have what we call our event standardization project.
Okay.
And what we're doing with that is we're using, again, like sports as a microcosm of what's happening in the world. We
Mm-hmm.
know where folks find a common ground is
Mm-hmm.
often at community events. And so
Mm-hmm.
what we're using is running events. So, it could be at your 5K, your half marathon, your marathons. We are
Mm-hmm.
going for our marathons because they are,
Yes.
yes, woo, woo, our marathons are
Yeah.
the most popular. They're known globally. So
Mm-hmm.
one or more, wink, wink, of the six majors is like a huge goal of ours because we know
Okay.
that many eyes will have visibility on like, whoa, what does that even mean? I mean, I can't tell you how many people, when we told them we were providing lactation support, we're like, wait, what is lactation? And you're like, okay. Like
Oh
we
my
need this,
gosh.
like we need folks to know this. Like does it
Yes.
exist in your office space? Does it
Yep.
exist within the corporate setting that you're in?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just like that visibility is like the big point for us. So
Mm-hmm.
we last year we had the opportunity to deploy lactation stations at the New York City Marathon, where we had it at the start and finish line,
Amazing.
8, 16, and 21 miles.
Yep.
It was the first that it's been done like that. And then our big goal is to make sure that we can actually get breast milk from the start line transported to the finish line. So currently
Wow.
we are able to transport personal pumps and provide hand pumps at these
Mm-hmm.
stations.
Yep.
But a big barrier is having race directors approve us transporting milk. So
Mm-hmm.
like that's a really big thing that we really, really hope to accomplish in the future. And then, of course, I'll be tapping on the doors of the Bobby team of like what we can
Yes.
do to support our athletic club members and folks
Mm-hmm.
within our community to have
Mm-hmm.
adequate resources towards feeding.
You're just taking my segue again, girl. It's
Sorry.
it's
See, like,
incredible.
do I have the job yet?
Yes, yes. How did you get connected to us here at Bobby, and
Gosh, yeah.
how did you start partnering with Bobby for Change?
So I started researching formulas because I, again, took the pressure off myself with my second
Mm-hmm.
one
Mm-hmm.
and had the same sort of thought process and idea of like, where is there a formula that actually fits the needs of my babies? Like, what has like
Mm-hmm.
a more organic, like, sort of formula that sounds
Mm-hmm.
buzzword, but really
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. Like, where is it? Like, how do I know? How do I trust it? And I
Mm-hmm.
recognize that the founders were all women, they were all moms. So
Mm-hmm.
Bobby was on like my checklist.
Right.
And the only reason, like I said, no formula made it home with the third baby was
Right.
because two things. One, a whole shutdown happened. And
Yes.
two, there was a formula shortage. So their whole aura was very much like in line with Ann Mother and their
Mm-hmm.
ethos. And we worked on quite a bit of ideas of what we could potentially do, especially when in 2021, athletes were told that they couldn't. We had athletes who felt encouraged after my story to like have children and also train for the
Yes.
Olympics, made the
Mm-hmm.
Olympic team. And suddenly they were told that they couldn't bring their babies to the Olympics. So
No.
we thought through like several different things that we would need in order to like if we really couldn't push for
Mm-hmm.
babies to not be called spectators,
Mm-hmm.
what were other ways that we could support like resources. And so just Bobby was just swirling around, never left our zone. Bobby had connected with our Ann Mother team member at the time when I was on my
Mm-hmm.
leave,
Mm-hmm.
and just really the ideas didn't stop. And so by the time
Mm-hmm.
we rolled into the end of last year, we really were like, there's so much that we can do together.
Yes.
The time is now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Michelle, can you tell us about all the amazing things we are working on and the whole mission behind it?
I would be happy to. I first feel like I need to go on a run. Like this is,
Right?
I'm like inspired to have
Me
my like
too.
pseudo Olympic moment. So I will be going on a run after this, just to keep myself accountable.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here. Alicia, you know I love you, and you too. This has been such an amazing conversation. We like to say that Bobby for Change is the soul of Bobby.
Mhm.
It is our social impact and policy arm, and we're doing a whole heck of a lot. It is the soul of Bobby. So we've been doing it. The company's been around 2.5 years. And we've been doing all of this impact work that entire time. But
Mhm.
when the shortage hit, we realized that we actually could be doing in earnest more policy work
Mhm.
and more give back work and
Mhm.
like create a place for that all to live. Hence was born Bobby for Change.
Mhm.
And we officially launched in January. We do activism, give back, policy work, advocacy, and through the life of the company, we've donated approximately 30,000 cans of formula, which is
Incredible.
wild to me. Just even as a shortage was going on,
Yes.
we have a program called Bobby Breasties, which is in partnership with one of our also amazing other nonprofit partners, the
Mhm.
Breasties. And we have had 3 cohorts of that. So in total, serving 177 parents who've been impacted by breast cancer.
Mhm.
So previvors, survivors, and thrivers, with 1 year of free formula and
Incredible.
advocacy. So that totals to over approximately like 16,000 cans of formula for that program,
Mhm.
and 415,000 4-ounce bottles. And when we kicked off this year, we came in with 6 inaugural partners:
Mhm.
And Mother, the Breasties, For Cure for Moms, Homeless Prenatal Program, Mama Glow Foundation, and Chamber of Mothers.
Mhm.
And we work with these organizations in different ways. So some
Mhm.
of it is these like new programs like we have with And Mother. Some of it is programs and advocacy. And our motto is really to work with these newer nonprofits that are led by people directly impacted by these issues, where we know that our dollars are really incremental to
Mhm.
those organizations. They're really going to pay the staff, which is so incredibly important, to do the labor of this incredible work
Mhm.
and really support them in visioning and scaling, and also just like creating awareness around the issues that they touch.
Mhm. Michelle, how do you think brands can make social impact part of their DNA, part of what's required to exist?
I mean, I think it's 2 things. It's really like from the beginning, having that be part of the vision of the organization. And
Mhm.
that with Bobby has been about, culture changing. Culture
Mhm.
changing was part of what we do as day one. And when the shortage hit, we were like, oh, hey, there's all of these other issues affecting modern parents. Like,
Mhm.
we can actually step in here. We have hundreds of thousands of parents in our network who are all
Mhm.
experiencing things that we also, as parents, are experiencing. I think
Mhm.
like we have over 100 employees at Bobby right now. I think 90 plus of us are parents, and
Yes.
like parents of like kids, 6 years and under. We had our
Mhm.
marketing offsite. There was 11 of us, and between us, I think we have like 17 kids, 5 and under, or
Right.
something wild. Like, so it's so rare for a company to be comprised of people directly impacted by the issue they face. And the second thing is money. You've
Mhm.
got to put your money into it. You have to put your back into it. I got
Mhm.
an email the other day. I get all the Bobby for Change at hibobby.com emails come to my address. So if you want to find us, that's where to find us. And people are always asking about support, financial support, canned support. And the breasty community reaches out a lot. And so I'm reading all of these emails, and somebody said, it's so amazing what you and Bobby and the donors are doing. I'm like, there is no donor. It's Bobby.
Mm.
Mhm.
We are putting our money into it, and
Mhm.
there is nothing that can replace writing that check.
Mhm. So true. To both of you, I'd love to hear about how and Mother and Bobby are working together. If there are specific calls to action, policy change, what are we all working on together?
Yeah, well, I think I'll hit on one major point. Of course, we
Mhm.
have lots of other things that I'm like, both Michelle and I were just like are throwing all of our ideas of what we want to be doing in the future together. But
Yes.
we talked about just like what's needed for athletes support, and I talked
Mhm.
about one of the things is like resources for feeding. So
Mhm.
we did last year, we did these lactation stations, and what we kept running into was folks that were caregivers that were like, do you guys have like a bottle warmer? Do you guys have any support for like a space that I could like feed my baby for folks who were not breastfeeding? So we're like, if we are talking about maternal care and we're talking about resources for like what could entail, somebody who needs support as a caregiver, what else do we need to provide? So we started doing with this year a caregivers lounges with Bobby, where we will have our lactation stations. We have a whole little lounge sort of set up for parents to kind of relax, put their baby down, and then we have this like fun little like ball sort of area. And then someone from Bobby is just sharing with folks resources about like and sharing with them about their formula and, ways that they could adequately be supported to feed their babies. And Michelle, like I'm always like knocking on Michelle's door. One of the big things like I would love to do with them is some more policies changes, especially as it comes to paid leave. And then also the other part for me that's really huge is, just touching on maternal care. So like when we talk about policy change, like I would love to walk in tandem with Bobby to the hill to make these sort of things happen. Again, we're continuously looking at the lack of maternal wellness, like just care for maternal wellness. We talked about like 6 weeks, but we also don't have enough support for folks to even understand, what it looks like if they aren't somebody who is breastfeeding their baby. Like how do I feel like I'm not a failure? How do I feel like I know what to do and what to expect? And what are some ways that I can actually like have my baby get used to formula when I know that I need to switch over to formula? Because my second for me was like, I really did not want to breastfeed anymore. And I couldn't get him I couldn't figure out like, how do I do, they're talking like 1 to 4, like what is like, you slowly do the thing. And it felt like a headache to figure it out. And I just would love for there to be more resources. But that was a really hard time. And I mentally really had an extremely hard time trying to feel like I was going to do okay mentally without figuring out what we were doing with the feeding component. It's a huge part of what you do with your child in that first year. I mean, forever, but like really in that first year.
100%.
And I think the thing we keep hitting on here is this feeling of being unsupported, and yet maternal health is so important from the beginning, right? And I think that's what I'd love to go a little bit deeper on is around Black maternal health in general, but specifically Black maternal health, and the Momnibus Act, which Michelle and many other people and partners and policymakers have been working tirelessly on. Michelle, can you tell us more about the Momnibus Act and how it can really help us support mothers at the root, at the beginning of this journey?
And I should say that so maternal wellness and maternal care is one of the pillars of Bobby for Change, and specifically Black maternal health. And that's something that Bobby for Change very intentionally set out from our inception. As you said, we've been working on the Momnibus this year, but I want to like honor the work that has gone into it for many years, mostly by Black women, mostly by Black birth workers, and other people have picked up that torch. And we are in a position where we can leverage our resources and our network. That's another thing that I think is really amazing about Bobby, has given the space for us to empower and resource the organizations that are doing that work. And so, would love to be working more closely with Ann Mother on this issue. And Alicia and I have spoken about it. We spent a lobby day with For Care for Moms founder Charles Johnson and Elaine Walter-Roth, who's formerly on our mother board, lobbying around the Momnibus, which was just reintroduced for the third time. It is a very comprehensive 13 individual bills that comprise this Momnibus. And it would be really chipping away at the maternal mortality crisis, which is a crisis, but disproportionately does impact Black women by 3 to 4 times. And so we know if we center folks who are most impacted, then we are making the system better for everyone. Different bills do different things. And so they're supporting maternal health care for veterans. There's more telehealth. There is getting at social determinants of care and equity, supporting community-based organizations that are providing more equitable care. There's more research. So each bill is getting at a different part of this equation. And it is money. and it's providers, right? So we know that like policy will not save us alone. It is people that save us, and the people that are doing that work need to be resourced. We know that Black birth workers comprise much far less of the entire community of birth workers nationally, and there needs to be culturally competent care in both, you know, for midwifery. And we work closely with Kindred Space LA, who I love to uplift. They're the only Black owned and operated birthing center in Southern California. Alicia and I both were at this event that Bobby for Change organized, where one of their founders, Kimberly Durden, was there in a conversation with Charles Johnson from Fakira, and Elaine Welteroth moderated that conversation. I know she was on the podcast. So this bill would chip away at the maternal mortality crisis. But we need the bill to pass. We need to fund birth workers. We need the implicit bias trainings happening at medical institutions, because all of these systems working together are creating this problem, and not one thing alone will fix it.
That's huge. Everything that they're doing in terms of supporting the Momnibus Act is, obviously, I don't need to mention it's huge, but it's also interesting, just like how I thought about the forethought of just like what I needed to do in order to like live, you know, from it happened on the track where I shared like the visibility of what I was going to do to show what we did in our industry, but also like I 100% was like midwifery is the way that I want to go. I want to be advocated for, and I want to make it out of here alive.
Yeah.
And it's a very real thought that's at the forefront of so many people's minds, and let alone like Black folks' minds. But I think the one thing that is really across the board in all of the wellness industries is that there are Black women who don't feel safe in any part of it. Whether it be midwifery or it be at the hospital, because there's folks that don't actually believe what they say because of implicit bias.
I feel bad jumping in with this after that, like really important point that I wanted to let sit. I do think it's important to note
that
I was going to say Alicia and I,
I knew where you're going with this.
Alicia and I share a midwife. Both of my births, we found out like well after we knew each other. Both of my births were done in midwifery settings in hospitals. Shout out to Golden Oak Midwives.
That's right.
It's amazing to have that joint experience, because we know that that level of care is so essential, that touch. And I don't have that experience of not being believed, you know, in the systems, but I really feel it's important to leverage the position that I have to resource the organizations that are led by the Alicias of the world and other folks who've been impacted, who can tell us what it means and what is necessary to listen and to hear.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I love that you mentioned that though too, because my first was a different midwife. And that's why I also have that experience with knowing like you could still not be heard with a midwife.
Important.
Like in the hospital, they're going to advocate for what you wrote down and you said you wanted to do. But I mean, my first midwife that I had, this was not Golden Oak. Ellie, Gwen, we love you. Where I was like, I am in labor. Like I'm actually in labor. They were like, yeah, you're not, like you this is your first baby. And I was like, wait, this is why I went with midwifery. Like, you know, I am in labor, you know, and literally I was at the hospital for like 20 minutes and the doc was like, that was there was like, where's your midwife? And I'm like, I'm in labor, but I think I got this. How do people do this? And like, she was crowning and the midwife comes in and I'm like, I was just kind of like, it soured that experience where I was like, okay, I know I'm going with somebody else. Like, you know, and I mentioned that story to Golden Oak Midwives here in Oakland. And they were like, so from the heart, like that will never happen here. You tell us you're in labor. My job is to get there. Like, that's just it. We believe you. And I'm like, that's what we want to hear. Like, we believe you. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If all medical professionals, especially as it pertains to pregnancy and birth, could simply say, we believe you.
Yeah.
I think we'd all be a lot better off. I want to shift gears to back to movement. Can you tell us about what And Mother and Bobby for Change are doing at the New York City Marathon?
I knew we were going to hit this point. That's why I
Gotta
didn't
do
mention that
it.
earlier, because you're
Gotta
like,
do
what are you
it.
guys doing? I was like, are we going to hit this yet?
Yes.
I don't know who wants to say it. Do we want to just, we're running the New York City Marathon.
So amazing.
You know what? It's so funny to me, because I'm going to tell the full story. I know Michelle needs this part of the story because she actually resurrected this thought. We were working with New York Roadrunners last year, and we have it's to get anything done, especially as women and moms and folks that are like really pushing for change, and folks that have been resistant to it for years. New York Roadrunners was already doing some stuff for mothers in lactation space. And so they were very open. They were like the best, major to like kind of start with. Well, I shouldn't say the best, but like they already had like a good groundwork. And so when I kind of walked in there, we were like, oh, we want to run so we can like raise funds and raise awareness. I knew how much the visibility really mattered when people saw me run in 2014, and to, be here. Also, I was born in New York, so it felt like I was having another birthing experience. And, we were like, can we get charity bibs for this 2022? And they're like, not this year. We already closed out the charity bib but like, paying us next year. And we're like, okay, well, we have this like important work to do. I got bibs as like the co-founder and visionary behind the work. And so fast forward to Michelle, we had a meeting like not even, was it like a day or two later? And Michelle
was like within,
it was within the
hours.
same week. And she was like, yeah, so we have all these ideas. And I'm just like, yes, check, check, check. Yes, we're going to make all this stuff happen. And then she's like, can you it was like the last thing on her list. She probably had it at the front, but was like, let me gauge. She's like, can you get bibs for the New York City Marathon? I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I can. Like, I literally knew I could say yes. I was like, yes, I can. Honestly, be right back. Totally, like before this whole, we finished for 2023, let me email some folks. And here we are. So we were like, we're doing this partnership together. We're going to head to the Big Apple. We're going to make some waves and some moves, and we're going to run 26.2 for change.
We have a group, as I mentioned, of so many parents and so many moms who run, who move, who use this as a tool for their mental wellness, talking about maternal wellness. Yes. I personally am a runner. You're a runner as well, Ange. This is something that is essential to my mental health.
Yeah.
And we have like a little Bobby Got Track Slack channel.
It's the best.
And it's the best. And so we're always talking about working out and running. I mean, running specifically, because that's what it's for. And I was like, yo, we have this, relationship with Ann Mother. Like, what if I got us see if we could get like a marathon, Bobby for Change, Ann Mother lockup for the marathon for 2024. I know that the deadline has passed, but it is Alicia Montano. Like, let's see what we can do.
Yes.
And so I asked, and now it's happening. And I'm just so excited about, again, this is a way that we can create awareness around the work that Ann Mother's doing, help resource you by like having all of these new people, because it's the individual runners that are going to be fundraising for their specific teams, so that all the people that they touch that are in their network are going to learn about your work. And it's just such a win-win. And I'm on the wait list. I might be the fourth runner. There's 3 on our team. So I'm hoping, I'm training like I'm going to go.
We got to get Michelle on there.
I only ran once. It was 2021. I was nursing, but there wasn't a lactation station at that time. But I'm really thrilled about the way that this can deepen our relationship and get more eyeballs on this lockup and this partnership.
Yeah, 100%.
I think this connection between motherhood and parenthood at large, but really motherhood and movement is huge. I'd love to hear both of your takes on that, and I think this major shift in how we like respect and respect our bodies, and how they're connected to our mental health and wellness.
Oh, I mean, I would love to take the wheel and just like kicking this one off, because it's in my first pregnancy, and all of my pregnancy, but in my first pregnancy, really, I thought that because I had this conversation again, and there was a woman that was in leadership. I called her when I was 10 weeks pregnant, and I told her in hesitation, like, I'm and she's like, are you pregnant? And I'm like, I am. She's like, okay, I hope you're not calling us because you think something's going to happen to your contract. And I trusted her. She laughed. And that's where the drama began. 2 men took her place, just so you guys can know that. We love you men, but sometimes y'all need 2 people for 1 woman. But anyway, I digress. But I felt like, honestly, I felt at peace. I felt off the hook for having to prove anything. And I ran because I felt good. In my first trimester, it wasn't Olympic, training efforts. It was for mental wellness. Yes. I literally would go out and I'd run 20 minutes. I would be like 2 minutes because, that first trimester is weird. There's like, you don't see any baby, but you're also like, why can't I breathe?
Why can't I walk up the stairs?
Why can't I walk up these stairs? Yes. It was like 1 minute on and I had 2 minutes and I felt great. I felt like I'd won a gold medal, and I was like, this is it. This is this piece that folks like walking into your doctor's office and being told that, again, by a bunch of people that don't really know that you should not exercise in your pregnancy, which that norm has completely shifted. But at that time, a decade ago, it was still kind of like existing for people. That's why everybody was like, oh, you're running in your pregnancy? And I'm like, I run, like I'm just doing what I do.
Right.
And for me, like that's where I kind of locked into understanding how important it not only was for me, but also for my baby and my kids to see us moving and for them to understand like, wow, I kind of like, I feel what that zone, like tapping into knowing what it feels like for you, not only physically, but also mentally, like that space that I get for other people. It's like the space you get for yourself, but it's also, let's be honest, if you got to deal with other people, it's the space that you also give for other people.
That's right.
Yeah. Michelle?
I have never said this publicly, although I don't know what public is waiting for me to comment on this, that I exclusively breastfed both of my kids until they were almost 2. And that's why I work at Bobby, really. The first time I had pretty significant postpartum anxiety that I didn't know I had, and it all was focused on breastfeeding. I gave birth in 2017. You gave birth at that time, and you beforehand, Alicia. It was like the peak goddess birth movement.
That's right.
And it's so, in my opinion, anti-women and anti-birthing people.
Completely.
And I just put an insane amount of pressure on myself to nurse, pump in the middle of the night for 9 months at 4 a.m. I was pumping to keep up my supply.
Same.
And I was the founder of an organization, a nonprofit, doing really intense movement work and lawyering. And I led the organization. And so I took maternity leave, but you can't take maternity leave when you run the show, and there's really, no one can replace you. So even though we instituted a mat leave policy, it's hard to talk about those things too, when you actually can't really take the leave because there's certain things that only you do. And so it was a very traumatic time for me. Ultimately, we got to a place where it was just beautiful. And I had a period of about a year past the year mark where it was just so lovely and amazing. With my second, also born in I was pregnant when I was 4 months pregnant when COVID hit. So he was born in August 2020. And what I like to say was a hell of the wildfire heat wave pandemic that was August 2020 in the Bay Area.
Oh my gosh, that's another, why are we talking about this trigger?
That's another, that's another 1, 2, 3 punch. And I was home though. And I left the organization that I founded and I took a really long mat leave. And so it was different. It was beautiful and it was wonderful. But at the tail end of that, my dad got really sick with cancer. And when I went back to the East Coast to be with him, I saw that he was dying and I stopped sleeping. And I was still nursing him almost 6 times a day at that point. And I had to call a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist said, you need to take something to sleep and it's not compatible with nursing. You need to go home and nurse him one last time and end this part of your journey. And it was horribly painful for me because I didn't feel that we were ready.
Right.
But I have to look at that journey as bookended by my mental health needs.
Yes.
And so I really tie that to movement and the thing that has consistently saved me, has consistently been a healing place back to my home, my my body, which was the home of my children and the home of the place that I fed my children for so long, was also this place that I needed to find peace and solace and healing again and again. And so when I run, I find time with my dad, who was a runner. He was a runner in the early 1970s when it wasn't really a national pastime yet. He ran the second New York City Marathon ever. And like I run with him, but I run for me. And it is just a place that I can constantly return to myself. And it is tied to becoming a parent and feeding them and these needs on the bookends that were really centered around my mental wellness.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, Michelle. There's so many layers to all of our experiences, all the things that we're going through all of this. So you guys, we could keep talking for a very long time.
We could totally.
Forever.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle, for keeping us in the know and activated. If you're interested, you listeners, in learning more about Bobby for Change, please visit bobbyforchange.org. And Alicia, it was an absolute honor having you on the show today. I am so inspired by everything you have done and are doing. Please tell our listeners where they can find you and Mother.
Yes. Well, thank you both so much for having me. You guys can follow And Mother and the work that we're doing at andmother.org. We're also on social media. You can follow us at andmother_org. And then myself, I just have a bunch of musings, y'all. So just do whatever you want. If you want to follow me, it's Alicia Montano on Instagram.
Thank you so much to Alicia and Michelle for joining us today. I feel like I learned so much about motherhood in the world of sports and the importance of building support systems for parents everywhere. I'm totally going to check in with my teenage self and maybe go for a run. Be sure to follow Bobby on Instagram at Bobby for all Milk Drunk updates and sign up for the Milk Drunk newsletter at milk-drunk.com. If you or someone you know is Bobby curious, head to hibobby.com/run for 15% off your first organic formula order. Milk Drunk is powered by Bobby, hosted by me, Angelica Temple, and produced by Beth Rowe, Mary Kelly, and the team at Full Picture Productions. If you're liking what we're shaking here at Milk Drunk Pod, be sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss a thing. Also, if you have topics you want to hear discussed or a hot parenting take, our DMs are always open.